question that we ended with last week, so we'll move on from respect and love. But how much is or should happiness be prioritized within a relationship? How much is or should happiness be prioritized within a relationship?
So
this is open to the floor, but
right. And thanks I see, you know, new people have joined. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for joining us. The question on the table is, how much is or should happiness be prioritized in a relationship?
Right. So I'm not going to, you know, go into where I started, but basically, you know, hey, Kim, she said should absolutely be prioritized. Okay. So how I said it before was, you shouldn't expect the other person to fulfill your happiness. Like, I feel like you need to be happy within yourself, like, you know, pour into yourself. And then and then you were like, oh, so you were like, oh, you don't need me to make you happy. And then everything got all skewed and I'm like, oh, great. But no, what I was trying to say was, yes, there are things that as my husband, you know, as your significant other, that can do to bring me joy, you know, and make me happy, you know, those like things that, you know, just because, you know, which are appreciated. But I just feel like it shouldn't solely be rested on the other person to always make you happy, because if they lack on it, or it's not if you're not on the same definition of happiness, you know, what can make somebody else happy may not make you happy, can really be a letdown, and where struggles can happen. So that's my view. And you? Oh, there's a message.
Oh, Hans, welcome. Thank you for joining us. So he says, question, should our happiness in our relationship with God be prioritized? Or do we go along with the journey and trust him through the process? Happiness will be a result in time. My man. I love it. You know, and I think that, you know, for us, I think that absolutely is apropos, you know, because, I mean, even us being in front of you now is part of, you know, us sort of walking in what we believe God is calling us to do. So I think, you know, our experience in doing this, I think, brings a level of happiness. So I think, to your point, Hans, this does speak to the journey. You know, it's like when you're doing what you feel you are supposed to do, there is a feeling of joy in knowing that you are doing that thing. I will also say, though, that there are things that we enjoy in life, right? And I think sort of listening to this question the second time around, before I was thinking more the way you were thinking, Samantha, in terms of how we relate to each other in terms of happiness. You know, like, you know, is the expectation like, you know, when I come through the door, you are to make me happy, you know, kind of thing. But the way I think about it now is like in our relationship, us taking the time to do the things that we know bring us joy and make us happy. You know, like allowing that space and prioritizing it for both of us. You know, like there are things that I know you like, you know, and so not dismissing the opportunity to do those things, especially similar to the conversation about respect, where you're in it for the long haul, right? So it's like it bodes well for both of us if we do those things along the way, if we are thinking, you know, just thinking in terms of like how we want to be together. So I guess the answer to that question for me is like, yes, you know, in terms of how we look at what the things that make us happy, making the decisions to do it. And again, you know, it's about the discipline of it. You know, there are moments where we may not feel it, but I think we also find that, you know, the gift of giving, you know, and so it's like sometimes in those moments by doing, you know, there's something you receive.
So, and to Han's point, it's like also like each person has their own walk, you know, with the Lord kind of thing. If you are a believer, and just like, you know, my level of belief compared to yours, like I just feel like it's all intertwined, and we have a journey to go through. You know, and thankfully, like, you know, we are doing this journey together. But you know, some people and some couples, they're not, and not that it doesn't work, but I just, you know, feel like it's all dependent on where you're placed, like where you are. And I see Kim has a message.
Happiness is an active pursuit. It should be a joint active pursuit. Absolutely.
Right.
You know, it's one of those things where I think a lot of times in a lot of relationships, if you're not conscious of it, those moments can slip you by, you know, and I think other feelings start to come in because you aren't taking that kind of time. So,
and you ever notice too, like, you know, couples where it's like they seem to be so much more happier apart, like, or not doing things together.
mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like, yes, it is great to have joy and happy, like, you know, with friends or family, and, you know, and that's great. But it's like if that's only your solely time you're happy, like if you don't make each other your significant other, if y'all don't have those joyous times and pour into each other, you know, those happy times to make those memories, it's sometimes unfortunate. And I see that sometimes, and I'm just like,
yeah. You know, it's interesting you say that, because I also believe that relationships are very different, right? And
right.
So, I mean, there are many sort of like transactional relationships in the sense where both parties sort of know what they're responsible for, and that might not be part of it, you know, like, so I think everybody operates, to your point, the way they do. But I think the reason I'm posing the question is it has to do a lot with expectation. You know, what are we expecting from the other? You know, and I think there's where at times people miss each other, where the expectation related to a personal feeling of happiness, like if there's not an active and open discussion of what that means in terms of how I relate to you, and vice versa. And, you know, there are times when you said, like, you know, you're expecting someone to do something and it doesn't happen. And then you feel a certain kind of way. And maybe it doesn't happen for a while, but maybe that person wasn't aware that was something they were supposed to be doing for you. So, again, I think a lot of times with many relationships, it comes down to communication. You know, I think if to be able to talk about certain things, I think is very, very helpful, as opposed to just like assuming you know how someone wants you to operate and move.
Right. And yeah, and yes, and like again, with everything throughout time, people change, things change, you know. So
yeah.
Yeah.